This is Captain Comic for the NES, released by Color Dreams in 1989. It first came out as a DOS shareware game. It was different, it was programmed for DOS. And it was something I was totally unaware of, but it seems like a lot of people actually speak of that shareware game fondly. It was something about early DOS games getting a side-scroller. I don't know. But this is one of those unlicensed NES carts, and it has a different shape and color on its cart than a standard NES game. I found this at a local retro GameStop, and I can't pass up when I see an oddity for a good price. Online, they refer to this game as The Adventures of Captain Comic, but on the cart it says Captain Comic, The Adventure, so somebody wasn't paying attention. The label is also printed upside down. Most standard NES games have the labels in the opposite direction. We get a side-scrolling adventure, and you control Captain Comic. And this is kind of where it starts to confuse me, because I don't know why he's called Captain Comic. Comic as in comic book? Or comic as in comedian? I don't know. I read the manual. There is no description as to why he's named this. It appears to be the novelty of just having alliteration in a title. The game loads to what I'd consider a pretty good starting screen. You get a spaceship with some jet animation out of the back. Okay, we're flying in space, nice. I like a good space adventure, although most of the level designs look like they belong in other games. I think there's a pirate kind of looking level. There's a dungeon, and one area is kind of like Castlevania. There's something in outer space, of course, at least one. And then there's something that looks like the inside of a computer. Now, this isn't a problem, but it did feel kind of strange after a while just playing this one. It just feels odd running around a castle in a spacesuit. It just kind of felt like I didn't belong. The overall goal is to retrieve 3 artifacts. You're going to need to jump around, find a couple of items, and you got to dodge and shoot any enemies that get in your way. You're going to pick up different items along the way that help you progress. You need boots, a key, a wand, and there's a lantern. These get you through different areas. Within the first 2 minutes of playing this game, I could easily identify what I consider to be the biggest problems with this game. First, you have a relatively tall sprite, which they never programmed to be able to duck. Ducking seems like such a basic mechanic. I really miss it here. Now the only way you can avoid an obstacle or an enemy is to run backwards or try to jump over them. Being able to just duck would have made this so much better. Also, you don't start the game with a weapon. I thought that was one of the core functions of a game like this. Offense. They make you start with nothing, and you have to run across part of the first level and find it. And before you find it, they throw a ton of enemies at you before you get there. Far more than you would expect, and I easily got killed the first few times before I found the weapon. As a result, the first level in particular, it makes it feel imbalanced, and I lost a bunch of lives before I got that stupid gun, and I can't think of any reason you would want to do it this way. But it's what we got. What are you going to do? I know this was the late 80s and video games were evolving, but other games did offer this, so I don't know. It felt weird to me. I guess you could compare this to Super Mario Bros. That would be fair, but there are much fewer levels, of course, and Mario could duck. Well, if they gave us the ability to crouch, and they gave us a gun from the get-go, I think this one would be just fine. We do have a jump and a fire button, and the jump button will let you go higher if you hold it down. It's nice, but I still jump into a ton of enemies. I kind of think the enemy movement patterns feel kind of rudimentary, and sometimes it feels almost impossible to dodge. It's like they move too fast sometimes, and multiple enemies seem to cluster to get you occasionally. It also feels like this game doesn't quite ramp up appropriately. I think a good game starts accessible, and it slowly increases so you get a sense of accomplishment by the time you get to the end. Here it just feels like you start out with the difficulty a little bit too high. I'm not great with the jump timing on this one yet for sure, and that's really the one thing you have to pay attention to. You're going to be spamming the fire button plenty, but you really need situational awareness to make sure you're not only dodging these enemies, but you don't drop yourself down a hole. I killed myself many times. There's definitely some tricky platforming here, and the graphics are pretty good for an NES game. I also think they made some good color combinations that make the different sprites seem separate. That might sound weird, but I've played plenty of games with poor color selections that makes everything blend. Here it seems pretty solid. In terms of design, it was pretty good. The music, though, it leaves something to be desired. I mean, for an action platformer where you're running around shooting things in space, the music is really rudimentary, and it doesn't mix well with the sound effects. It just feels muddy to me, and I don't like it. I just think a better soundtrack, if this had a kickin' soundtrack, it would have really helped. I'm not really sure how this game did back in the day, but as an unlicensed game, I imagine it had a lower print run. It seems to me that if they licensed this and maybe made a few basic adjustments, this one probably could have been more popular. I think it's okay overall for an NES game, but it's probably nothing I'd put on my list for a regular basis play. Well, that's all I have today for Captain Comic for the NES. Thanks for stopping by for a look, and hope to catch you on another video.